Hi guys, I thought it might be a good idea to bring Kara in today so we can talk more about STEM major, specifically biochemistry. Thank you, Kara, so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to talk about the world of biochemistry and all that the degree entails.
Nice. So what are we having? What are we drinking?
That's a great question. So, as you can tell, it says, I love you coffee. So, this is obviously an iced coffee with oat milk.
I'm having full tea. Simple.
Yeah. Hey,
A little
honestly,
vintage cup.
it's beautiful. I was gonna say this is from Walmart.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this first. I have the question on my phone, so if I look at my phone, it's because of that. Kara, the first question that I have for you is what made you choose biochemistry as a major?
So originally, when I went into college, I actually wasn't a biochem major. I was declared for environmental science. However, my goal was to go to medical school. And so as I went into college, I realized maybe environmental science wasn't so competitive to get into medical school. And I decided to go with biochemistry because it had, I thought, a good balance between biology and chemistry, which
Yeah.
are two very important things, obviously, when you want to go get a medical school degree. So that was my main reason I originally went into my biochemistry degree. Plus, it also had kind of a dual degree with it into molecular biology.
That sounds hard.
So it sounded like a really cool major. I was like, yes, sign me up. This sounds great.
Cool. Okay. And next question that I have is what has been like the most surprising thing about studying biochemistry?
So I would say that the most surprising thing going into biochemistry is that it connected to so many different types of sciences out there.
Yeah.
I truly thought like I was just going to be in like almost like a chemistry lab all the time doing lab experiments. But I found myself in like animal science courses, in zoology, looking at like all these vastly different types of sciences that you would not expect for a biochem major to be a part of. So I think that was the most surprising going in, is that on my curriculum sheet, it was like animal science. I was like, what?
I kind of have the same experience with my major as in engineering for mechanical. We, of course, learn about fluid mechanics and thermodynamics and stuff like that, but we also learn about like renewable energies, robotics, and just kind of like very broad for mechanical engineering.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I think it also made it easier to switch to biochemistry coming from an environmental science degree.
Yeah.
It made it more comfortable for sure. And I should say that this biochem degree did come from an agriculture college. So I was not in like a biomedical college. So I think that had to do a little bit with the class schedules, is that I was in that college versus the actual medical.
Cool. Another question is, this one is a good one. What quality does it take for a student to be successful in STEM major?
Oh,
Besides loving science.
yeah. So I would say, I was actually talking to a student about this recently because he is going into his senior year. And he is wanting to pursue engineering, actually, aerospace. And I told him, I said, because he's a little unsure, and I said, it doesn't matter which STEM degree you get. Every STEM degree has one goal, and that is basically teaching you how to think very critically and to problem solve. It's all just in a different context. For me, obviously, with biochemistry, I was looking more at the human body, sometimes ecosystems and their interactions. For engineering, you're like building things.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Exactly.
Optimizing stuff.
Exactly. And so I think for someone wanting to go into a STEM degree, you have to be willing to kind of have this open mind of problem solving. And if you think you're not a good problem solver now, at least have the like want to become one.
I agree with that because I don't think I'm a very good problem solver, but my curiosity is like another level.
Yeah.
And so when you go to school, you just like, oh, I'm gonna learn this, I'm gonna learn that. That mindset just helped me through engineering school. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like, even if you don't know the topic a whole lot, like you're obviously going to learn that topic. You don't
Yeah.
have to go into a biochem degree or an engineering degree and know everything. Yeah, like that is not expected.
I'm going to ask you more about your academic experience. So what was like the most challenging class that you've taken in your degree so far, and why?
So I feel like for the biochemistry majors out there, this is not gonna come as a shocker. For everyone else, it might be like, really? Any physics class, bro.
Really?
Yeah. I would say I'm a better physics person now, but back in the day, you asked me about any kinematic equation, my mind just like exploded. It went blank immediately. Passing my physics 1 and physics 2 classes was like an actual like life journey. It was very, very hard. Obviously, like some people are more math oriented, some are not. I definitely was not, but I've gotten better as I've, continued in my education and stuff. But I would say that was the most challenging, especially at the time. I actually remember I had a physics test on my birthday, and the TA saw me in the hallway frantically studying, trying to get anything in my brain. And he was like, "You got this." And I just nervously laughed and was like, yeah. I'm pretty sure I got like a 30 on that test.
I mean, you still passed, so it's fine though.
Yeah, I mean, still passed it. Didn't have to retake it.
There you go. As long as you pass it. I mean, for me, definitely anything that's like chemistry related or biochemistry, because I mean, we all have our strengths, and mine's definitely more physics, and then yours definitely more chemistry and bio.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we choose the major that we choose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think so. And the physics classes definitely were more geared towards, I can understand these equations and know where these numbers go. Whereas biochemistry, I feel like, is more memorization, patterns, and I was better at that for sure.
The next question is, which concept is giving you like a hard time? Which one makes you feel like it doesn't click with me?
In biochemistry?
Yes, in biochemistry.
Okay, well, let me think. So I would say that the one thing that really kind of like threw me for a loop in biochemistry is any biochemistry related to geology.
Yeah.
Rocks are weird, and
It's so interesting though, isn't it?
it's so interesting and they're so pretty. I love the minerals, I love the rocks, but at what point is it a silicate and all of the other ones? I don't even know all of them because I was like so intimidated by all of the like biochemistry, or I guess chemistry behind just like rocks and stuff.
Yeah, I think I took a class. It's called like geology for engineering or something. I don't know why I did that, but it was the hardest class I've ever done. And I ended up having to withdraw the class because the professor was like, "You're dumb. Like, you need to drop this class." She didn't say exactly that I'm dumb, but basically along the line of, "You didn't put any effort in this. I think you should drop this class."
Oh my god.
But yeah, I hear you.
Oh my gosh. Was that the only class that you were ever like, I need to drop this right now?
No, there's a lot.
There's a lot. Fair enough.
Yeah. I actually have a video that I'm going through my transcript. I'll post it next week. But yeah, there's some class in there that's like,
Oh my gosh.
Okay, how about lab hour? I know you guys have to do a lot of lab, so how intensive was it, and like how long was the lab report? Can you walk us through that?
Yes. So specifically for biochemistry, you don't get to biochem lab until your senior year. During biochem lab, you have about an hour lecture beforehand. And for us specifically, we had a 4-hour actual lab. And this lab taught you to do all the things that would be important for you going into a professional lab for any university or medical group or whatever it is. It was translatable to a lot of different places. So this included like PCR, spectroscopy, anything to do with like electrophoresis stuff, really just kind of like what you would think of as the basics in lab, but you're doing them at a level that is much, much higher than you have ever studied them before.
Yeah.
So we had multiple times where we would go set up the lab, specifically PCR. If you've done PCR, you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So let me just say what PCR stands for.
Yes, please.
Polymerase chain reaction.
Okay.
And basically you're looking at, like, let's say a bacteria, you're trying to put DNA in and stuff like that. And so you have to wait for these kind of like 3-step processes that go on. And each step takes a required amount of time usually. So I remember having to set it up, leave the lab, then like 2-3 hours later come back, finish it, or at least get it to that next step. So that was a bit tedious because during that time you really can't schedule other classes.
Right.
Like you can't go far, so you have to really stay on campus. It's kind of like a 5-hour, you are here in this building doing biochem lab.
That's crazy. Ugh. And that's senior year?
And that was senior year, yeah. Not to mention the lecture you had beforehand to get you prepared for that lab because...
Okay, let's talk more about the real world application. So my next question is there any... I forgot the question.
Vibes.
Whoopsie. Oh, yeah. So the next question is, how do you see biochemistry showing up in your like daily life?
That's a good question. So...
Good question only.
Yes, of course. So I would say right now, my biggest interest is in plants and specifically native plants to Oklahoma. I find that they are really helpful for the environment, which obviously biochemistry is going to be in any type of science that you are looking at, whether that's gardening, whether that's, you know, just looking at the grassland environment that we are in general. And so for me, I've had to do a lot of research into like the soil quality, which sounds so weird, but we have found time and time again that plant life relies on the soil bacteria and the fungi networks like the mycorrhizae that help those root systems really thrive. So for me, I've been really invested in that kind of biochem recently, but obviously most biochem is really geared towards humans and the human body and nutrition. And obviously that is also a really big deal. You look at any influencer on the internet, they are a wellness influencer trying to sell you something for your
Health.
yes, let's say in the nice way, health. And so obviously I take an interest in that because I myself like to be a healthy person. And
Right.
so yeah, it really is everywhere and it can solve a lot of problems. We look at problems in our day-to-day life, and if you look at the biochemistry of you or your environment, it can help answer a lot of those questions.
Gotcha. That's very cool. Another question that I have is there any like recent discovery or news in biochemistry that very excites you?
I would say that this is not really new, but it is still very much into development. Gene editing. Do we know what that is? Do we want me to explain it a little bit?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm scratching my head.
So gene editing is when we take something and essentially can cut a piece of our DNA or replace a part of our DNA with a protein. This can come from a system called CRISPR-Cas9. I believe there's also a couple of other possibilities out there for gene editing, but that's kind of your golden standard for gene editing. And it can help cure a lot of different diseases out there. Sickle cell anemia is one that we see being studied most often, but really any type of genetic illness that can be transferred from parent to offspring, gene editing can help fix. Now, while this is not new, it's not developed well due to obviously the ethical concerns behind it.
Yeah.
But I think that in the future, gene editing can help save not only our environment with threatened and endangered species, but it can also really work towards a new generation of human medicine.
Yeah. I think I saw like a video on TikTok about gene editing, but they trying to, I wouldn't say heal, but help with someone's cancer. I could be wrong, but I need to look into that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different cancers that like can have obviously not good impact on the body.
Yeah.
And so let's say someone does go through cancer therapy and needs help maybe rehabilitating some like organ tissue. gene editing can technically help do that. So
That's crazy.
there's a lot of different uses for it. It's so cool.
Yeah, there's like okay, let's talk a little bit about your personal career journey. So what would you consider when you were in school for biochemistry, and what are you currently doing now?
Yes. Okay. So like I said before, I was environmental science going in and then switched to biochemistry later on when I was like, this is going to be more competitive for medical school.
Yeah.
It absolutely would have been. However, I did not end up going to medical school. I realized about junior year that was not for me. So obviously that's a little late in college to be changing anything else. So I continued on with my biochemistry degree. I really did enjoy it. But I was like, okay, well, if 90% of us are going to medical school and I'm not, what is that 10% doing? So I did a little bit of research, and I eventually senior year applied to be in a bunch of different labs around the country. I eventually got into a biology lab at a university. And about 3 months into that job, realized I did not like lab work.
Yeah. It's so intense.
It's intense. You are around, I didn't know this was a fear of mine, but having a storage room where you walk in and you're just surrounded by these caustic, well, okay, there was that too. These caustic chemicals.
Yeah. That's a big problem.
Yeah, because this was probably not the way most university labs do it. I was not trained properly. I did not go through safety classes like I learned later on you were supposed to be in those situations. Just saying. Learn for next time.
Yeah.
But other than just kind of the fear of being around all of these caustic chemicals and, seeing the warning labels on them, like, this causes cancer, don't touch it with bare hands, I just didn't really feel comfortable in lab. I was working basically 7-8 hours by myself, mixing solutions for professors, for students' labs, preparing, dead specimens to be dissected. So I just was like, not a vibe. It was not for me.
Yeah.
And I really had to kind of think about what did I like about science and where did I want kind of my journey to go? Because really, if you are not going into medical school, then biochemistry gets you really only into labs. It doesn't really get you anywhere else, unfortunately. Yeah. I came across an opportunity to start teaching, and specifically teaching the younger middle schoolers, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I started teaching in 2019 in person, and I taught for 3 years in person all the way through COVID.
Wow, that's rough.
Which was an experience, but actually an experience that led to what I'm doing right now, which is online teaching to middle schoolers and high schoolers, and doing literally every science topic you could imagine. And it's a lot of fun. I really like it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about a student with their science knowledge?
On average, I would say that the students I get, because I am doing a bit more advanced kind of classes, they are very motivated to learn the sciences, and they are very motivated to learn the ones that specifically interest them the most. So, when you try to teach someone physics and they're a biochem major and they're not interested, I've had those kids too. But if they're interested, let's say in chemistry or biology, they are very interested in it, and I'll do projects with them. We'll do research essays that we can submit for competitions. So
that's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I love to see them grow too, because I have these kids year after year now. Aww. I know.
Yeah. That's so sweet.
I actually have my first seniors next year, and I'm going to cry my eyes out whenever they graduate.
Yeah, basically your children. Wow.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time with them.
I call them my kiddos.
Yeah,
so.
That's so sweet. And we do need a lot more teachers. Just saying.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Teachers they have a job that I don't think many people understand what kind of a job they have. It is not just showing up and talking to the kids about cells. It is showing up, communicating with those kids, building a relationship with those kids. Sometimes, and I see these kids maybe once, twice, 3 times a week. If I get a kid who is specifically maybe not having a good day, our entire lesson is talking about their feelings.
Yeah.
Which is not something that you would think of as a science teacher, but it does happen.
Shout out to all the teachers. Wait, so you have a YouTube channel?
Yes, I do.
Can you talk more about it?
Yes. So, like doing online teaching, I also like to just record videos so that if I don't have the kids, obviously one-on-one every day, I can still teach kids around the world.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's called Doodle Homework.
Yep.
And I came up with that name because I like being really artsy and I draw a lot. And I think drawing and like diagramming concepts is a lot better than just blurting them.
Yeah, I am like a visual learner. I can't just be like listen to stuff and understand. I have to like see it, and the more diagram, the better, I think. So.
Yeah. I like to call myself an artsy scientist because
you are an artsy scientist.
I try to be.
Last question for the session. Okay. Would you recommend this major for someone who wants to go into, I guess, medical school?
Yes, this major for medical school I feel like is competitive enough to where it stands out on an application. Mm-hmm. I personally think, and this is my own opinion, I personally think a biochemistry degree is stronger than just a biology or just a chemistry degree.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of the classes I had junior year and definitely senior year were medical based classes. I had immunology, I had molecular biology, obviously that biochemistry lab. Even though we did like kind of basic processes, we still talked about them in context of like a human being and medical sciences.
Okay, so the last question, not really a question, more like a request.
Okay.
Would you be able to give us like a quick lesson about the difference between DNA and RNA? Because I do not know.
Yes, of course. I would love to. So DNA stands for, this is a really long word, deoxyribonucleic acid. What does that even mean? Doesn't matter right now. RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. So the only differences in those words is the deoxy, ribose, and the just ribose.
Yeah.
Basically, that just means it's sugar with or without oxygen.
Oh.
So RNA actually does have oxygen in the ribose. Deoxyribose, so our DNA, does not. And basically that just honestly gives them a different code that they go by. Why that's important is because our body speaks in RNA when we're making new proteins, new cells, things like that. So if we just gave DNA to our body, it would not make anything. It would be like a person who speaks English trying to translate French. They would not know how to do that. Mm-hmm. And so that's where RNA comes in, is that it really helps us to translate. The process is called translation. Translate that into workable pieces for our body. Okay. And that is the main difference between DNA and RNA. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay, if you want to learn more about science, plant, rocks, biochemistry, please go subscribe to her channel. It's called Doodle Homework. I'll tag it down below. I also typed it right here. But yeah, she have a very cool channel. Go support her, and she posts a lot of good content.
Thank you.
For a teacher as well.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think